I'd never have imagined standing at the altar in a pristine white dress, heart pounding, breath caught in my chest, only to realize the two people I most wanted beside me weren't there. Mom? Dad? I whispered to myself, fingertips gripping the lace of my bouquet so tightly my knuckles ached. The chapel's stained glass windows painted the pews in jewel-toned light, the soft hum of the organ building toward the processional. My bridesmaids exchanged anxious glances behind me. I swallowed hard, willing my throat to relax. Emily? My maid of honor, Claire, leaned close and lowered her voice. They're on their way, aren't they? I blinked back tears. They promised. It had been 7 years since my parents had sat through any family occasion without complaint. Graduations? They were there, clapping so loud I wore a permanent ringing in my ears afterward. My college graduation speech? They beamed at me like I was the moon's latest discovery. But now, on the most important day of my life, my wedding day, they'd called to say they were running late. Again. It wasn't until noon, 45 minutes before the ceremony, when my phone buzzed with a misaligned sympathy emoji, that the truth sank in. They were at my sister's photo shoot instead. My sister. Olivia, 27, model perfect, with limbs like willow branches and skin so flawless, the cafe lights seemed to sculpt haloed shadows along her cheekbones. She was engaged to someone else in 6 months. Her bridal photographer had insisted on capturing pre-wedding images for the magazine spread. And my parents, ever eager to be seen doting on the rising star of our family, had dashed off for a golden hour shoot. I stared at that text, the little camera icon mocking me, while my best friend Jade arrived to pin my veil into place. "Your parents?" she asked, fumbling with the hair comb. I forced a laugh. "Apparently they have a better gig." Jade's lips flattened. "Claire told me." "I'm so sorry." She took my hand. "Breathe. The ceremony will start in 10 minutes. If they arrive when the recessional starts, just nod and keep walking. No drama." I managed a nod, but inside, every cell in my body wanted to scream. How could they choose a glossy photo shoot over my wedding? I bit my lip until it bled, tasting iron as I swallowed my rage. The chapel doors creaked open. My heart stuttered. My father's oak-brown shoes stepped inside, followed by my mother's familiar floral scarf brushing the aisle carpet. Relief flooded me, but it was mingled with something darker, resentment. They slipped into the back pew, cheeks flushed, eyes apologetic but hurrying to plaster on proud expressions as I began my walk down the aisle. They missed my father's funniest joke prelude, the first time I saw my groom, Ben, his cheeks pink under the chapel lights. They missed my mother's whispered encouragement until the last possible moment. After the I do's and the ring exchange, we stepped into a mild spring breeze and made our way down the stone steps. Cameras flashed, family cooed, guests clapped. At the foot of the stairs, I heard my mother gasp. "Oh, darling, you look lovely," she said, voice high-pitched, catching me off guard. My father wrapped an arm around her waist. "Congratulations, sweetheart," he added, eyes darting to Oleander Park Road, as if resisting the urge to run back to his car. Their delay was already backstage, a silent betrayal. But I refused to collapse into tears in front of those 100 faces. Instead, I raised my chin, inhaled, and smiled. That evening, at the reception, our reception, the one I'd planned for 18 months, the empty chairs at the head table spoke louder than any speech. I watched them slide in just as the DJ announced, "To the newlyweds." Their timing was impeccable, right at the moment Ben and I rose to toast. Glasses clinked, thunderous applause washed over me. I looked at Mom and Dad, who offered sheepish, wine-stained tooth grins, distressingly cheerful. "Where were you?" I whispered to my mother later, as she pretended to fuss with the centerpiece lilies. "You missed the first dance rehearsal, the cake cutting. Did you even care?" She placed a hand on my shoulder. "Sweetie, it was just a photo shoot. You know how important their portfolio is." She nodded toward my sister, who was being swarmed by bridesmaids and reporters. I realized in that moment that my wedding had become a backdrop to Olivia's rising star, my love story a mere prop in her spotlight. I turned on my heel and walked toward the dance floor, away from her and away from them. My heels clicked against the oak boards. Ben caught my hand mid-step, and I leaned into his warmth. "I'm sorry," he murmured. I shook my head. "No, it's fine." I forced a smile, then let out a shaky breath. "Just throw me into the DJ's next song." He nodded. "Anything for you." So I danced, laughter rigid, arms moving through choreographed motions, while my parents whispered praises and selfies with Olivia. By the time the bar closed, I felt something shift, a seed of defiance taking root. They thought if they waddled in fashionably late and planted a kiss on my cheek, everything would be forgiven. They thought they could smooth over their absence with apologies whispered over champagne. They didn't understand that my day had been stolen, that every second they spent adorning someone else's moment was time lost from mine. Back in our suite at midnight, I stared at my reflection in the vanity mirror. My wedding gown hung elegant against the wall, untouched for hours. My makeup had begun its slow highway to meltdown, smudged eyeliner trailing down my cheek. I dabbed at it, eyes blazing. No more pretending, I whispered to my reflection. They need to understand what they did. The next morning, I stood at the head of our family brunch. An elaborate spread of smoked salmon benedicts, sourdough toast, fresh berries, a thank you celebration for everyone who'd helped. My father winked at me over his newspaper. My mother fluttered around, refilling teacups and flitting from table to table like a social butterfly. Olivia posed for Instagram stories among the mimosa tower. I sipped my coffee and felt the warmth of Ben's hand cover mine. He didn't need to ask. He knew my plan, a small pointed pressure campaign to make them feel every ripple of regret. First, I asked them to help write our honeymoon itinerary. I want you both involved, I said, tone light. My father beamed, so eager to fix things. My mother looked relieved to be included in something I controlled. Of course, he said. Where are you headed? I tapped my finger on my lips, feigning thoughtfulness. We're deciding between Bali or Greece. You both did that cruise. What would you recommend? My mother rattled off tips about Greek isles, beaches, tavernas. I listened, nodding, all the while emailing our travel agent to hold both trips, but not confirm. My parents colluded furiously, booking excursions, spa treatments, private dinners, each suggestion more lavish. I watched it all unfold, heart sinking with the knowledge that whatever they recommended, I'd never be there. Because our honeymoon would be someplace absolutely, undeniably, nowhere. Later that afternoon, as they sorted through photo proofs from my wedding, picking favorites to enlarge, I offered to take them to the gallery where I'd commission our portrait. They exchanged delighted looks. Yes, darling, that sounds wonderful. I thanked God for digital photography and online editing. When I got home, I uploaded the files to a professional site and clicked send full payment and rush order, only to select the address of my childhood home, the rental my parents had declined to visit when I'd moved in after graduation. That night, I watched them gloat over which shots captured my best angle. They didn't suspect the recipient of the 24x36 canvas I'd ordered, their own living room wall, where the wedding photos would arrive, solo of my sister, solo of me, and one grand group shot where they'd opted to crop themselves entirely out. And as I crawled into bed, I could almost hear the click of their jaws dropping when they unfolded the oversized package. They'd skipped my wedding for a photo shoot. Now their regret would be as undeniable as the image staring back at them from that gallery wall. Because they thought my love story was secondary. But now, every glance at that portrait, every time they walked past it, leaned in for a closer look, would remind them that I was the bride they abandoned, the daughter they overlooked, and that I had made sure they'd regret it forever. The next morning, I woke to the scent of freshly brewed coffee drifting through the apartment. My head throbbed with a mix of triumph and apprehension. The portrait, the centerpiece of my little revenge, had shipped overnight, and already I could imagine my parents' faces when they unwrapped it. My phone buzzed, a group text from my parents. No hearts, no congratulations, just 3 ominous words. Call us now. I took a deep breath and dialed home. My father answered first, voice trembling. What is this? He stammered. I pictured the portrait hanging on their living room wall. A massive, glossy photograph of Olivia in her ethereal white gown on one side, me in my lace dress staring defiantly into the lens on the other, and in the center, the 4 of us together, Mom, Dad, Olivia, and me, but theirs had been cropped so that only Olivia stood between my parents. I'd subtly instructed the editor to set the group pose so that my parents were literally walking behind Olivia, hand in hand, while I stood at the edge, face partially cut off. It was artful cruelty. I smiled into the phone. Good morning, Dad. Did you get the portrait I sent? Silence. Then a strangled whisper. Why would you send us that? I leaned back against my headboard. You missed the most important day of my life, to take photos of Olivia. I thought you'd like a daily reminder of how you chose her spotlight over my vows. My mother's voice broke in, breathy and pained. We're sorry, darling. We never intended. Oh, you intended. I interrupted softly. You intended to make her more important than me, and you did. I just made sure you'd never forget. The line went dead. An hour later, my phone rang again. This time it was Mom, quieter and more vulnerable than I'd ever heard her. Sweetie, please, she began. Let me explain. I closed my eyes. Part of me relished the power. Part of me pounded with guilt. I'm listening. She cleared her throat. Your sister's photographer got us a last-minute golden hour slot. They kept pushing. It's the only time Olivia's hair and her bouquet will look perfect. Your father and I thought we could slip back to your wedding afterward. We didn't think it would be so rushed. I pictured them at the park, surrounded by sunlight and floral arches, oblivious to my empty aisle. Listening to excuses won't bring back the ceremony you abandoned, I said. She sniffed. I'm sorry I hurt you. I should have been there, and I should have told you this before. I admitted, my voice cracking. I've been holding on to this resentment all night. But I also miss you. I miss the family I thought we had. Silence. Then I miss you too, Emily. My throat clenched at the old nickname she used when I was little, just me, without wedding gowns or photo shoots. I swallowed. Maybe we start over, but you have to see it from my side every day. Let that portrait remind you what you lost. They agreed, voice unsteady, to come visit me that afternoon. No cameras, no photo ops, just conversation and tea. At 3 p.m., I opened the door to find them standing awkwardly. The portrait tucked under Dad's arm, wrapped like a solemn offering. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed. My father's jaw was clenched. May I? He asked quietly, handling it with reverence. I led them into the living room. They unwrapped it together, and I watched their faces shift from confusion to horror to shame. It's so big, my mother whispered. Dad's hand trembled as he touched the glossy surface. Olivia, you're behind her. My spot, I murmured. They looked at me then. No filters, no Instagram-ready poses. Just two aging faces confronting the consequences of their choices. My mother's lower lip trembled. She turned away, fingers pressed to her mouth. I'm so sorry, she choked out. I didn't realize I was selfish. My father sank onto the sofa, head bowed. We thought we were celebrating her future. We forgot to celebrate yours. I sat beside him. I needed you in that moment, and you left. Tears welled in my mother's eyes. We left you and you deserved better. We sat in silence, the portrait towering behind them, an unblinking witness. Finally, my father exhaled. How can we make this right? I hesitated. I want honesty. I want you both to commit to being present for my life, without comparisons, without rushing off. And I want this. I gestured to the portrait, hung somewhere you cannot ignore. My mother nodded, agreed, and will apologize to Olivia too. She didn't know how much this hurt you. I blinked. That would mean a lot to me. Dad reached for my hand. Emily, I love you. I'm sorry we made you feel less important. The words felt good, like balm. I leaned into his shoulder, my heart softening. That evening, we made a simple family dinner at my apartment. Homemade lasagna, salad, garlic bread. My parents washed dishes while I set the table. Olivia dropped by too, shyly, carrying a single white rose. She stood at the doorway, pausing when she saw the portrait behind the sofa. I wanted to see it, she said quietly. My mother turned. Liv, sweetie, come in. Olivia approached slowly, eyes flicking over the images. She studied mine, defiant, proud, wounded, then hers, glamorous, luminous. Then the group shot, her flanked by my parents, me relegated to the edge. Her lower lip quivered. I'm so sorry, Em. I never asked them to skip your wedding. I thought you knew how much both of you meant to me. I gestured for her to sit. I know you didn't ask it, but you benefited from it, and I felt abandoned. She reached out, taking my hand. I love you, you're my sister. I don't want any of this to come between us. I squeezed her hand. Let's make a pact. No more playing favorites. We both get prime time equally. She nodded, tears shining. Agreed. My father came in with plates. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass of sparkling water. To family, I said, clinking my glass with Olivia's and my mother's. Weeks later, I visited my parents' house. The portrait hung prominently in their entryway, still jarring, but now a symbol of accountability rather than spite. Each time they passed it, they paused, sometimes exchanging a quiet glance, sometimes touching the frame reverently. Our family dinners resumed with genuine laughter, no rushed departures, no lurking photographer. My parents kept their cameras tucked away, choosing to focus on conversation instead of composition. Olivia and I took weekend walks in the park together, talking about life beyond gowns and photo shoots. One afternoon, as we strolled beneath blooming jacarandas, my mother slipped her arm through mine. "Thank you for giving us a second chance," she said softly. I smiled up at her. "Thank you for wanting it." In the end, the portrait did more than remind them of their mistake. It reminded all of us that love isn't a spotlight you share unevenly, but a circle that grows wider when everyone stands together. And while they once thought a photo shoot could outshine my wedding day, they learned that some moments, like vows exchanged, tears wiped away, and promises made, are irreplaceable. My portrait hung as a testament not to betrayal, but to reconciliation, and every time they passed it, they remembered why family always deserves its moment in the sun.